Yesterday, the biggest winner in racing was Jern because he came back to tip-top form in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. He beat an outstanding field, certainly a superior field that ran in the BMW a fortnight ago. Keith Hillier in Melbourne joins us along with Max Presnell in Sydney. Good morning, gentlemen. And Max, I believe we can start this segment with some sensational news that has come to light in the last couple of hours.
Yes, the AJC Chief Steward John Schreck has announced that Hariba has returned a positive sample taken from him after winning the rider. The sample shows traces of a corticosteroid. Don't ask me to pronounce it, but it's in the Depomedrol category.
So what does that mean, Max? I mean, obviously he loses the rider stakes. What else are the repercussions?
Oh, that's left up to the stewards. They'll open an inquiry this week, perhaps on Thursday.
Is it a serious issue, I mean?
Oh, a very, very serious issue. When you lose a race, it's a serious issue. Certainly, it'll have to be decided who was at fault. And that's an issue which I don't think we should get into because that will be investigated on Thursday.
We did talk about this a moment ago when we were in the break, and Keith raised the subject, and I agree with him. It seemed to be a long time coming, this result.
Melbourne. Had to go down to Melbourne to be analysed, and we know what they're like down there. They're a little bit slow out of the gates. No, really, it was the analytical process that brought about a delay, but Schreck assures me it's not really an uncommon delay when samples have got to go down to Melbourne to be tested. If it could have been tested at the AJC or retested at the AJC, reconfirmed at the AJC, it certainly wouldn't have been as quick.
Keith, I think racing again is a big loser here. The Rider Stakes was arguably the class field of 1995, and Hariba won brilliantly. He is a superstar. We need superstars in the game, and he certainly his performance is now very much clouded and damaged because of this.
Yes, indeed, a terrible blow for the connections because he's a super sprinter, as you said, Bruce, and there will be repercussions now and serious ones, and he'll lose the race unless something totally out of the left field comes up.
Well, let's talk Jern for a moment in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. I think, Max, that yesterday, this along with the Rider Stakes has been the two class events during your carnival. We brought together some of the very best horses, and I guess the really intriguing factor was Dane Wynn and how he would go at weight for age against the best horses. Again, he seemed to have every chance, but he was run down by a better horse on the day.
Oh, no doubt about that. The point with Jern, though, is that he was confronted with a set of circumstances that were made to order for him. There was going to be a lot of pace up front. The track had that sting out of it, and Jern is a damn good horse, but he's not a great horse. He can't make his own circumstances. If you get the race run to his liking, he will win, and it certainly was run to his liking yesterday.
Max, if he's not great, he's certainly the best around. He's had 11 runs at Group 1 level for 4 wins, 6 seconds, and the Cox Plate was his only unplaced run. He definitely clinched the Horse of the Year title yesterday.
Yes, I can't argue with that, Keith. Here as Dane Wynn seems to have every chance, goes up to the lead encouragingly, but when Jern, who's been doing it very easily all the way, puts his claim in, Dane Wynn hasn't got an answer. Bobby Thompson, I feel, still is of the opinion that Jackie Che doesn't get the best out of Dane Wynn, but I couldn't criticise his performance yesterday.
Actually, it's been interesting, Max, reading the papers during the week. Two trainers, Bob Thompson and earlier John Morris, concerning Beedman's ride on March here, have been very critical of jockeys this week, something we haven't seen a lot of in the past.
Well, you bring that mention up, Bruce. Tommy Smith yesterday, I don't know whether I can say it on television, but bullshit. When Glenn Boss said to him he gave his horse every chance. Bullshit, repeated Tommy Smith. Now, I haven't seen Tommy Smith in a dither like that probably throughout his career. He copped Tulloch getting beaten by Sharpley in the 1961 Sydney Cup sweeter than he copped Balmaressa running fourth yesterday.
Keith, wonder whether Max's suspension will be doubled for 2 utterances there, Bruce.
I was going to say, to remind me, Keith, next time I say to Max, go on, just say, no, don't go on at all. Calm Harbour, is he okay? Did he pull up all right, Max?
No, he pulled up in a distressed state. Again, we'll have to wait for further veterinary confirmation just how bad Calm Harbour or good Calm Harbour is, but Mick Dittman had no option but to pull him up yesterday, and his action was supported by the subsequent veterinary examination.
Will Jern stay in training, do you think, or will he be retired?
Well, he's going so well. David Hayes, a master trainer, wants to keep him in work. Why wouldn't you keep him in work? And certainly he'll be a force in anything he races with, as long as he gets a bit of pace up front and as long as the tracks aren't too hard.
Let's look at the Sydney Cup. Keith, I'll start with you. Darcher, who had a good run all the way, young Brett Preble, the only apprentice in the race. But this horse was 10-1 2 starts ago when he won the Duke of Norfolk Stakes. Has he made incredible improvement, or was this a pretty ordinary one?
Well, he's been consistent. He was 40-1 also when runner-up in the Chairman's Stakes, his last lead up to the Sydney Cup. You mentioned Bruce, Brett Preble. He's only 17. No apprentice has won this Cup at least in the last 40 years. And John Maher, the Melbourne-based trainer, he won the Cup in 87 with Major Drive and should have won it last year with Hear That Bell. So put together, this is a very fitting reward for them. Preble, 137 rides, 51 on city tracks. He's the new Stephen King, and that's the opinion of his master, John Maher.
What did you make of it, Max? You were closer to the action yesterday.
I make it a very good ride by Preble. Not a vintage Sydney Cup, and certainly Dark Czar coming onto the scene very late here was most unlucky. That's Balmaressa, the you-know-what horse on the outside with a white cap and the red colours.
Was that the one that didn't have every chance? Tell me about Starstruck. She seemed to lay in badly in the straight. Was she sore, or did she fail to stay?
No, I think a couple of little factors. Starstruck does not seem as comfortable in the Sydney way of going as she is going the Melbourne way. Perhaps that might be a leg, might be giving her a bit of trouble. She wasn't really enthusiastic. She ran a good race, but I don't think she's 100% right. It was not a strong Sydney Cup.
I'm pleased for John Maher because, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, Keith, he was in the absolute elite level in horse training here in Australia, and he has had a fairly lean run probably since that final day of the carnival 2 years ago in the Melbourne Cup.
Yes, he did have a slump, and that led to the split with his stable rider Steve King. But he's grinding back, and he's been winning a lot of races, especially on the provincials and in town lately. He's back, Bruce.
Nothing better than a Group 1. Northwood Plume yesterday, Circles of Gold, won the Adrian Knox. This has been a good lead-up. Gavin Eads again, Group 1 in front. Keith, you again, firstly. Northwood Plume looked to have every chance. I mean, we can't criticise her. She's been an outstanding filly. She's won 3 times a Group 1. Do you think she's just slightly over the top, or is there a little doubt about her as a true stayer?
I'm not sure. Yesterday was the first time that she'd been beaten by a filly. They dawdled the first 1,200 metres, 1:19.67. Damien Oliver gave her a lovely ride, but Group 1 Gavin on the winner, Circles of Gold, was able to dictate the pace, rate that filly beautifully, and she kept finding. So I think the result on the day was the right way, considering the run of the race. Northwood Plume, every chance.
Max?
Northwood Plume is a super filly. This was not the real Northwood Plume. Perhaps she's trained off. Perhaps the legs might have been feeling the hard racing she had on hard tracks at Rosehill, but she just didn't zip. She zipped for about 1 hop yesterday. That is not the real Northwood Plume. She'll get 1.5 miles. She'll be a major force in the spring. We're running out of time. Keith Alderson, he was good, wasn't he, yesterday?
Oh, he's rising 8. He's been injury prone. 14 starts for 8 wins now. Marvellous training performance.
And Max Juggler?
Top class, is going to win a lot of races.
Good on you. Max, we'll see you next week. We often retire you at this time of the year. Come back for the champagne, would you? Stakes?
Yes, I'm starting to feel the hard tracks up here, Bruce.
And wash out your mouth too, Max.
Gentlemen, thank you. Keith Hillier, Max Presnell. A break. Kate back with scores after this, and then Frank Murray and hockey.
Field, and he's on the post, right? When Buster's on the field, he's running.